So Randy is a leader of a men's group and one half of the podcast duo that hosts Another Way to See It. He describes himself as an old soul with a beginner's mindset who relies on his life experiences and authentic curiosity to meet people where they are. He's a change maker that challenges anyone who is willing to break the old blueprints and patterns that are no longer in their alignment. And he will be interviewed by Coach Lee to share his experiences with making friendships and learning from past patterns.
Welcome, Randy. Welcome. How are you today?
Doing good, thank you. Sorry for the sunlight. We're glowing over here, so don't mind it. It's going to be part of it. It's part of it all.
It's part of your glow.
Yeah, right.
There's this old movie called not Enter the Dragon, but Dawn of the Dragon or something like that.
Yes.
No, I forget what it is, but
I know what you're talking about.
it was all about the glow. Your body and your spirit has the glow. So yeah, it's a glow up.
Love
But
it.
I'm so glad to have you here today. And so we're here to talk about friendships and connections. And since you're a men's coach, I'm interested in learning more about the connections with other men and how friendships form with them as well. Like, I know that you help anyone and everyone. You have your own friendships with everyone and everyone, but we're at Love Yourself First. This is a conference that most people would think about and they think, oh, it's girly. Oh, the love for yourself, it's not something that men do. And I tend to disagree. But since I haven't spent most of my life as a male, I have some gaps in there. And I'd hope that you could share some of your experiences. So I wonder if you could start out by describing some of your closest friendships and how you got to them.
I want to say so much. First, I want to say thank you for putting this on, for leading with your own curiosity to see what this would look like and what would come from it. So there's a lot of respect that I have for you. And how we met was through Podmatch. To be a guest on my podcast, and I was instantly drawn to you, and it comes from a place of curiosity. That's my favorite word.
Okay.
You'll hear me say it, talk about it, but yeah, to touch on men expressing their feelings and to be in groups like this, it is, I would say, from a feminine energy place. And I catch myself in groups like this, in groups with women more so than men, because there is that sacred place of feminine energy that they're already in tune with. And I feel like men are lacking that balance of masculine and feminine energy within.
Yeah. Could you say a little more about what feminine and masculine energy look like?
I mean, there's so many variables to it, but there's also a lot of toxic masculinity and even toxic femininity out there. For me, I mainly will touch on the masculine side, and that comes from a place of grounded structure, safety, whereas women come from more of feminine. Sorry, let me express that. Feminine energy comes from more of in tune with their heart, their mind, and their feelings. And that's just the cusp of it, because I'm still so new into it, of understanding masculine and femininity. I'm actually reading The Masculine in Relationship right now, which I love learning about. So I don't know enough to say I'm an expert by any means, but the curiosity is definitely driving strong on understanding this more.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually curious about it too, because you said masculine and feminine, and I find myself around, of course, because I talk about emotion all the time, around more women or more feminine energy. We should put it like that, more feminine energy. And I know that it doesn't have to be a female who has a lot of feminine energy. Likewise, a man who has masculine energy. There's a mix. There's a difference, and there's an amount of who has it and such in the balance. But I find myself sometimes feeling like an imposter in some situations. Like, for example, so I'm trans, and I keep saying that, Um, I didn't grow up in a place where I could go to a barbershop and have this male culture where I was part of the barbershop culture. I didn't understand the barbershop culture. It's a black barbershop culture. There's a thing to it. People go in and they talk about anything and everything. I didn't get this rite of passage to go in and get my haircut until my mid 30s. Right. And I go in and there's a whole culture to it. And everybody there has grown up with the culture and knowing what to do. And I step into that space and I have no idea what to do. And there's all kinds of energy that's flying around. And I want to talk about feelings or they after coming to barbershop a few times, I want to talk about my thoughts and feelings about something. And they're straight away being like super hyper masculine. So I felt like there was a disconnect. I felt like a little bit of an imposter because of that. And just could be because of the energy that we bring in the spaces, because I'm bringing this feminine energy into space. But I wonder, you say that you find yourself bringing feminine energy or being around women more often. Do you experience that when making connections with men?
Uh, yeah. So I would say originally when I first started my journey, that I would have said I was more in my feminine energy,
Hmm.
because of my wounded masculine uh traumas that I navigated through childhood. Uh, but now I would say I'm more of a grounded, I don't want to divine masculine energy to where I'm comfortable in that feminine space. So, but to touch on,
Mm,
like you were talking about the barber shop,
yeah.
and yes, it's like men gather, they have that community, they are able to talk, but I do feel that surface level, that there's not a lot of depth in those conversations.
Hmm.
And so where we're at now, and I believe it was Kevin that just mentioned it, that the challenges of feelings and emotions are considered a weakness, but there's so much strength and growth when you're able to articulate that and express that to others, not just women, but to other men. That is being in your divine masculine, able to be strong and be grounded, but also able to express yourself authentically.
Absolutely. So creating like deeper bonds and connections with men don't just come from talking about basketball and things like that, what you did over the weekend, what you're going to do, what you ate and stuff like that. Those are kind of hollow conversations. But there is you mentioned wounded masculinity, and I I I think that on that note, that a lot of men have this wounded masculinity where they don't want to share their feelings. But when you come along and you demonstrate, Randy, as an example, that you are a man who can share your feelings, you do have an impact on people. And so how has that helped you in creating your friendships?
Well, unfortunately, I lost a lot of friendships.
Oh,
That's part of the growth and the journey. So I won't go into too much detail, but I mean, we all know 2020 what it was.
mm-hmm.
For me, it was the perfect storm. It was COVID. I was a shop foreman at a automotive dealership. They demoted me to save money, and then I went through a divorce, all in a matter of like 7 months. So I was left to either
Wow.
stay in that toxic masculinity of being a perfectionist, wanting to be right, wanting to control not only myself but others.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a breaking point, and I had to decide whether to lean into the unknown and get curious about what's not working, because in a sense nothing was working for me. I had the six figures, I had the nice house, the nice vehicles, uh, on social media, the perfect relationship, and that was all fake because I wasn't my true self. And so going through the journey of my self discovery, of putting myself first, of being quote unquote selfish, because we're told not to be selfish growing up, but
Right.
that's what needs to happen to understand and love yourself. And so going through that, I lost a lot of friends. I quit being the one that always reached out. I prioritized myself. So moving into my new authentic self and the best version of myself, the friendships have gotten easier, and they're also more, there's more depth, right? And I actually did a podcast of like a tier system of friendships, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
you have your core group of close friends that you can talk about anything, any depth, anything. They're always there. Doesn't matter where they're at in the world, they're there. And then you have certain people that you only share so much with because of implementing boundaries. You know that I can go to this person for this one thing, and that's
Mhm.
okay. Because let's be real, not one person can meet all your needs.
Right.
And that's a hard pill to swallow.
Right. And it's really great to know that not everybody can meet your own needs, because then you can have really good friends in your life. And essentially you're not trying to make them do everything. You're not trying to make them into something they're not. You accept them for who they are, and you just take them as they are. So I really appreciate that you shared your story with us. I'm curious about, well, I really connect to the fact that you lost friends, and that's part of the growth, as I've lost friends too. But you said that it makes it easier. So it's now easier to find friends. How is that?
For me, it was leading once again with curiosity. It's not being afraid of shame or judgment. You know, when I'm really leading with my aligned self, my authentic self, I attract. Uh, I struggle with like-minded, so I use like-intentioned.
Mm,
You know, those like-intentioned
mm,
souls start to draw. They start to connect. They, you know, it's easier to see, and unfortunately we're all through these boxes, right? So it's hard to navigate because I have a resting asshole face. So a lot of I am intimidating in that sense of just the natural appearance, and so leading with my authentic self and being true to myself, I can pick up. I've started picking up on energies, you know, and I believe we all have that, because you're in a room, you meet somebody for the first time, and you're like, there's something
yeah.
about that person.
Hmm.
Stick with that. There's something there. You may never know why, but you have those feelings, or if you're drawn to somebody, lean into that. Go ask them a question, introduce yourself, you know, and I come from a place that in the shop I was the one in the control. I was the one able to talk to anybody, talk to customers, talk to managers. Outside of that, I found myself quiet. I found
Oh,
myself not leading with that authenticity because I didn't know what that was.
right, right. There's a bit of a, like, you know, everything in the shop, and you know how people roll, and you know what people come in for, and such and such. So it's an environment that you say that you can control. And so being outside of that, you really had no skills for that, right? Until you just started to become more curious, and then you discovered more and you learned more about yourself and the people around you. I certainly believe that it's really important to be curious about the energies, because that's something that I subscribe to, my idea. And I think most of the people here believe that there's an energy and connection between us, and we can pick up on that. And for so long, we've been told that that does not exist. You need to look outside of yourself and do what other people are doing. Don't pay attention to your own feelings. Forget your intuition. It's not real. And then all of us are like, they lied.
Mhm.
They lied. I'm feeling something here with this person, and I'm going to pay attention to it. I'm going to not talk to them, or I'm going to lean into them because they seem interesting. And so that's how you've created your friendships. That's how you recovered. And that's how how is it? Yeah. How is it that you go about creating friendships today?
Mm. Uh, really, really, once again, leading with that curiosity. Anytime a group comes up, or
Mm,
uh I'm real big on Instagram over Facebook, because I
yeah.
can control that feed. Um, so I find myself interacting with something that catches my eye, something that, you know, makes me stop and think. You know,
Hmm.
those are where I make those connections, and not being afraid to talk to a stranger. So like I'll tell a quick story is I was down in Florida. My girlfriend lives down in Orlando, Florida, and I was down there for this past month, getting away from the cold. And
Yeah.
so I was out disc golfing at a course, and this guy was playing in front of me, and I caught up to him at like hole 7 or 8, and he was looking for a disc. Now, it would have been nothing for me to play through and go about my day. But I was like, hey, what disc did you lose? Let me help you out. So we spent like 10 minutes finding the disc. Come to find out, he's visiting from San Diego, which is where my brother lives. And my brother's also a big disc golfer. So we started shooting the shit,
Yeah.
And so come to find out, he's 6 months into disc golfing. I'm a few years in. I let him throw a couple of my discs. He actually fell in love with some of my discs, and we wound up playing another round together. And the next day going to a different course to play. And I now have a friend that I don't know a lot about, but
Right.
I picked up on his energy and his
Mhm.
authentic self. And the day that I left, he went and played another course, and I gave him one of my discs. He threw an ace, his first throw into the first basket, which is a hole in one in disc golf.
Oh, okay.
It's not
That's
easy to do.
wow. Holy
So
moly.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, just leading with intention and curiosity,
Mhm.
I hear you saying, and being open to this experience. So what I like most about your story is that you didn't go looking for a friend. You weren't looking for it. You just knew it when you saw it. You felt it. You were like, oh, I'm going to help this person. I'm going to be curious for your own sake, and started up having conversation and making connections. And I appreciate that you acknowledge that it's not a super deep it's not a super deep connection right away, because it's
Mhm.
not going to be. You have to have time to create those. And the tiers of friendships, you talked about that earlier. The tiers of friendships where, this is somebody that you can do something with, but you can do an activity with, but
Mhm.
your conversations you can have more conversation and deeper connections. And that's just how I think friendships are started. It's not essentially looking for your friend,
Mhm.
but there is you being you. Wherever you are, your friends are. So you were just being your natural, relaxed, helpful self. I
Yeah.
think that's really awesome.
Yeah, it's organic, right? Like
Hmm.
it's not fake when it's organic. It naturally happens, it naturally evolves. And don't get me wrong, I could never hear from that person again, but
Right.
that doesn't take away from the moment that we shared and the synchronicity that we had. I mean, he could have been from anywhere, but just the fact that he was from San Diego, which is where my brother lived, that's those small points that we need to focus on in the moments of that synchronicity. There's lessons to be learned, right? And it's picking up on
Absolutely.
those cues that for me in the past I would have brushed off. I'm like, oh, that's cool, San Diego. Yeah, my brother's only been there 6 years, so he doesn't know you,
Hmm.
right? Like it's that tunnel vision. But when I remove that tunnel vision, everything comes in. And then
It's,
I
it's
get to decide what I want to keep and what's not meant for me.
Yes, you can see the bigger picture. And I
Hmm.
wonder, since you said synchronicities, have you read the Celestine Prophecy?
It's my jam.
Oh yeah,
That,
okay.
that's actually the second book I read when starting my self-growth journey.
Wow. That's really
So,
awesome. I recently read it.
wow, amazing.
I went to a conference and they sent it to me as I won a prize, and they sent me this book, and I let it sit on my counter for a long time, and then I picked it up and I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. It's an amazing book. It's about
Mhm.
the synchronicities and discovering how you're connected with other people. It's a story. They tell it in a story form, so it's a novel, but it
Yeah.
is really great way to illustrate these synchronicities, how you can look for them in your own life. I think it's really amazing. Um, so I did want to ask you, since you were on your journey to making friendships, I think this is something that we're going to continue to do. We're going to continue to do that until we expire. That's what I think.
Mhm.
We're always looking for some people who can tell us about ourselves. So I wonder, what is a good friendship to you? What does a good friendship look like?
Ugh. Uh, it also comes down to that tier system I talk about, you know. I can find a good friend that I know I'm gonna get the truth from, you know, as hard of a pill it may be to swallow. And then I also have the close friends that are hard on me, but they lead with compassion. And I think that's very important that, you know, you know the difference in those, because unfortunately we live in a society where misery loves company, and it's easy to, I'm gonna say I'm gonna say this word because it was an inside joke at the shop. Sport bitching. You know, people love to complain.
Oh yeah, that's
And so I use that in the shop because unfortunately it was like high school drama with grown men 24/7. And so you know,
that's a barbershop too.
yeah, you really got to find those people that want the best for you. They want to see you grow, they want to see you evolve, and that's trial and error. You know, Tamara talked about practice, and everything's practice, right? Like nothing's, we say the game of life, but it's all practice.
Yeah.
And I always reference the Allen Iverson NBA issue where they went back for him missing practice. He's like, we're talking about practice, not a game. And so if you haven't ever seen that video, highly recommend checking it out because it's funny, because he's like, we're just talking about practice. This is all practice, not a game, but practice. And so it's trial and error to where you got to find those people that are it's going to be a balance, right? Of like holding you accountable, calling you out on your BS, and the way to elevate your growth, not to knock you down.
Right. Yeah, we definitely want those people in our lives that are going to elevate us, I think, and not knock us down. And when you get around people who do the sport bitching, do the thing where we're all complaining, there's a sense that everybody's going to be knocked down. And I don't think that's a great place to find friendships for sure. So being around people who, I think, one great way to discover like people who are going to be able to tell you the truth, or going to be compassionate, is that they're not doing the sport bitching, but they're doing something like, oh, you're doing a good job, bro. Some praising, some supportive. That's the way they sound. They're like, I'm trying to do something new. I'm trying to discover something else. I want to have a change in my life. Those are the kind of people that, in my own discovery, I'm like, those are people that I want to be around, because those people will be compassionate and they will be supportive because they do it for themselves. However they're treating themselves is likely how they're going to treat you.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I took a look around in my own friendships, and in COVID, I shared a story where I lost a bunch of friends, and I realized that I didn't like them because I wanted to do something more compassionate for myself. I wanted to be compassionate for them and myself, but I was like, it seemed like every turn they would find something to complain about. And so if you find yourself in a situation like that, what would you recommend if anyone finds themselves in a situation like they're around a bunch of people who they don't necessarily connect with these days? What would you recommend?
I think that's where that self-evaluation comes into play, of really getting with, you know, what are you looking for out of these people? You know, if you're looking for just the surface level, you know, shoot the shit, have drinks, go to concerts and whatever, that's great, but you have to establish them into that category, right? So it's always that you got to go through almost like your own checklist of like, I know this person, their name's so and so, this is what they do, this is how I engage with them, this is the energy I pick up with them, this is how my energy responds to theirs. You know, there's so much of that it comes down to where you got to do like a checklist with each individual as well as yourself for what you want. So when you come into those groups of, you know, you outgrow them, right? Like your trajectory is always moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that are stuck in their ways, and that's the truth, right? There's no judgment from that. That's not me bashing them. That's just the reality of it, is some people are content or unknown that they're stuck.
Yes, that's true. That's
And
true.
so knowing that and not taking it personally allows you to set boundaries, to decide if you want to be their friend, or are they acquaintance, or are those someone that you see on the rare side of times?
Yeah.
So it really comes down to always having that self conversation and the awareness of what you're looking for in that moment.
Absolutely. Randy, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experiences with us. This is the Q&A portion that I went over just a little bit. So if you have questions for Randy, please drop them in the chat. If you have questions, if you want to know more about him and what he does, I will drop the information about how to connect with him in the chat. But I just want to thank you again, Randy, for coming on and sharing your wisdom as a leader of a men's group. There are really some important things I think, to share with men, especially because now they're waking up to this idea of femininity and getting in touch with their feelings. And man, it's hard. It's hard.
No,
So if you have,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
absolutely, absolutely. So any questions that you have, feel free to come off mute or drop them in the chat.
And also, I saw in the chat, I'm horrible with names. so I saw that. And when you jump back on, can you just lay it out for me again? Because I am going to be reaching out to you anyway, so I don't want to keep butchering your name anymore.
I love it. All right, let's let Coach Lee practice. Let's see how he does.
I'm gonna do terribly because I have
Say my
such
name. Say my
Tamara.
name. You got it. See?
Tamara, that rhymes with camera. And
That's right.
but I look at Tamala and want to be Tamala, and
But
it's
it's
not right.
Tamala.
I know. So it's so difficult.
You gotta stop at the M. Stop
Gotta
at
stop
the
at the
M.
end, Tamala. So
Tamala, yes.
Pamela. See,
And Tamara. See? It's easy. It's easy because it's the same.
Tamala.
Tamara.
Tamala.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
want
Okay.
to.
I've answered to Heather before. I mean,
Oh man.
Tay, I wouldn't say that I
Oh, questions.
needed to what change needed to be done in the way you created friends. I think the change was within me, of understanding who I was and what I needed for myself. And that organically grew into expired relationships, and also looking for new relationships as far as like intended individuals. So I don't know what the moment was, other than that my growth took off and my journey started differently. I went on a different path, and that's where I gave the option to people to come along and be part of that. And if not, this is nothing personally, and here you go your separate way. And then the tier system was between me and my co-host. We were jamming on it one call. She does a lot of driving, so she was on the phone driving, or she was in the car on the phone driving, and we just started going back and forth about friendship, and it just kind of started this tier system. And it's a good way to have that lens if you struggle with boundaries and stuff, to know, oh, not to be forward, but to where to put them in their place.
Right. Absolutely. I believe that we talked about boundaries earlier. Put somebody in their place. You know, they're not going to be upset. They'll figure it out. It's a loving, and as long as it comes from a loving place. So there's one more question here, and I wonder if you could touch on it really quickly. So how can we help men understand it's okay and not a weakness to have and express emotions constructively?
It's a loaded question.
It is.
This could be talked about a lot, Kevin. For me, you lead by example, right? Like, it's easy to start chatting with a guy friend, or for me, I have a struggle with my brother. He's a negative Nancy, and it used to bleed onto me, where I would fall into that trap. And so it's, for me, it was really shifting and staying true to myself, and always growing and questioning things and leading with curiosity to be the best version of myself. And that doesn't always happen. Let's be real. Like, I have off days,
Mhm.
and it's also knowing those as well. And so to express emotions in a healthy form, I think requires work. And I did a lot of work on my own, and then I found a therapist, and then I found a coach, And so I did a lot of the work myself. That worked for me. I'm not saying it works for others, but really understanding what healthy expression looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Men get caught up in the only time they're able to express themselves is through anger. And I
Yeah.
think that we have to break that. We have to do the work on ourselves to figure out why we're angry, why that triggers us, to really focus on the depth, the traumas, because we all go through trauma. Nobody comes unscathed, going through our childhood and teenage years and adulthood. And so, you know,
Yeah.
until men are ready to do the work, to put in that time to face those shadows, they're not going to know how to express themselves healthy. So
Absolutely.
it really takes doing the work, the deep dive, to understand ourselves, to be able to express ourselves. And that's where that difference is. So
Yeah.
I can meet men wherever they are, but I have to lead example, because I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna ask my clients or my friends or the random people I talk to try anything that I haven't done. I'm not that person.
Exactly.
I've gone through the trials and errors.
Yes. So it sounds like, to sum it up, is that you have to be the change that you want to see. So you're out there demonstrating what it is to share your truth and share your feelings with other men. And so that's going to help them know that it's safe to do it. So Randy, again, I want to thank you. I dropped your information in the chat, but if you haven't seen it, I'll drop it again. There we go. Please take a look at his LinkedIn, not LinkedIn, Linktree. He has lots of links there. And also you can follow him on Instagram and this podcast, Another Way to See It. I was a guest on this podcast, and I'm sure he's just itching to talk to everyone here. Such great conversation in the chat. So thank you so much again, Randy. Round of applause.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. And thank you, Coach Lee, for putting this on. It's an amazing platform. And once again, leading with that curiosity has put all these people together. So I'm thankful for that.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Thank you so much.